So welcome, my name is Georgina. I set up and run Toppsta.com, which is a website where children read and review books and share their recommendations with each other. My session today will be talking about what I've learned running a business as a social enterprise. And I'd be interested to know if these lessons resonate with you and your business, whether you are a social enterprise or not, and also if there's anything you'd add, anything that I've missed. I appreciate that we may have a lot of people from different sectors here, each with a different interest, so please do ask questions alongside in the chat and I will answer them if I can see them during the chat or afterwards at the end. So just very quickly, I'm going to try and change the slide. My background is 10 years at, first of all, Penguin Books, running various digital departments. And I've just begun to work on Toppsta when I was approached by Apple to set up and run their European ebook stores in their iTunes business, a job which was just too good to turn down. iTunes was, as you can imagine, a very different environment to publishing, but what I learned there was absolutely indispensable in terms of setting up Toppsta. iTunes is set up with lean teams which can scale easily. Costs are kept very low and there's a clear decision maker, which means that altogether you can move very quickly. But first off, a confession. I didn't set up Toppsta to be a social enterprise. In fact, I had no idea that the category of business even existed until relatively recently. And yes, I feel as if I have found my tribe. For years, I've been saying that I didn't feel that Toppsta fitted in either into a traditional business template of high growth, profits before purpose, commercial decisions taking the fore, but nor did we fit into the charity sector as we're not reliant on grants and have a reasonable turnover and profit margins. But Toppsta's mission is to get children reading, to get books into the hands of children who wouldn't ordinarily have access to books, and to do it in a fun and accessible way. The bottom line is literacy, though it's a word I avoid using at all costs. I think it comes across as rather dry and worthy. And Toppsta is all about making reading fun. It's about targeting the mum in the park, pushing her child on the swing whilst checking Facebook on her phone. Not so much about big charitable projects and the infrastructure and governance that they often require. If anyone is interested, there is a fascinating article by the National Literacy Trust about the impact of COVID on the 4.6 million children living in poverty in the UK, who we already know start school with vocabularies up to 19 months behind their better off peers. 1 in 11 of these families won't have books at home, and with schools and libraries closed, their access to books is further depleted. But coming back to Toppsta, 6 years on, from launching, we have 60,000 book reviews. 90% of our readers are outside of London. We are sometimes the first children's book that a family has ever owned. Take that in. We encourage reluctant readers to read widely to help them understand that just because they don't like a particular book, that doesn't mean that they don't like reading. We help avid readers share their recommendations and we celebrate their bookishness. And we have no like buttons and no forums to help keep it kind. One of the questions I am often asked is how we make money. So I thought I'd share that up front. We have built up a large community online. This is our website here where we have 150,000 unique visitors every month, but we also have 27,000 followers on Facebook, another 10,000 followers on Twitter. And we work with publishers to promote their books through our channels by running free book giveaways. By that, I mean we run a competition to win a book. Parents enter on behalf of their children. We choose the winners. The publisher sends the book to the child directly, and the child then gets their own piece of post delivered with the book and sometimes a certificate saying well done inside, which they can take into school. This gives the child a huge amount of anticipation and excitement and helps to make the books fun. And of the books that are sent out, we get 95% reviews back because the child understands that we are waiting, the publisher's waiting, the author's waiting to hear what they think. So we have a setup where publishers get to promote their books to readers and gain genuine reviews from children, which they can use in their marketing. Parents discover books they might not have heard of. Children get free books, and within the process of winning a book, spend time reading, which we obviously want, as well as working on their comprehension and their writing. And we facilitate the platform, or rather, I like to say we host the party where the children are the VIP guests. So our revenue comes from the publishers, from B2B, but our customers are both the publishers and the readers. Before I get into the session properly, I just wanted to share an email I received this week, as it really sums up what we're about and why Toppsta really exists. Apologies if you are inundated with these sort of emails. I wanted to say that generally we get crazy emails through the website, and this was a lovely one to receive, but I just thought I'd pass a few thoughts on. I just wanted to send an email to say thank you for our free books, for encouraging my reluctant reader boy to explore new books, for engaging my underconfident daughter and making her feel like an author writing reviews, and for providing links to resources. You are a wonderful service and you are appreciated. And I think we can all appreciate that writing an email like that doesn't take hugely long, but is always appreciated by the sender. And I've made a commitment to send more thank you emails like this because they're so appreciated. But moving on. 10 things I've learned whilst running a social enterprise. First of all, there's a tension between financial return and purpose, and balancing the two can bring complexity, but also freedom. Complexity because sometimes I'm faced with choosing between the two, and I feel as if I didn't have a social purpose, that decision would probably be more straightforward. And freedom because I can legitimately choose purpose over financial return, and it feels great. What I've realized is that I'm comfortable choosing something which sits in the middle, that rather murky purple area. And I can justify choosing something which just falls into purpose, but I don't feel comfortable choosing something which only falls into financial return. And I'm going to return to this diagram a few times within the session because it really impacts every part of the business, starting, of course, with your team. As a social enterprise, you really need to find people who share your vision. The ultimate goal for us at Toppsta is literacy, and we have a team of freelancers, some of whom we've been using since we first launched back in 2014. Though they are not employed as such by us, they are absolutely central to everything that we do. And I've realised that it's incredibly important that the people who work for Toppsta understand and are committed to the social impact of what we're trying to do. I found that if they're just there for the red circle, the paid work, it just hasn't worked out. Part of that, of course, is down to me and communicating our purpose clearly. But I've learned that if you're not passionate about literacy in books, it doesn't matter how good your CV is, Toppsta isn't the place for you. Lesson number 3, it's vital to keep your fixed costs as low as possible. I mentioned how whilst working at iTunes, I learned how to run a lean team. When I say a lean team, I should probably explain that I was a team of 1 at Apple, managing over 5,000 accounts, UK publishers. I'd heard that the same team at Kindle was 12 people in total, which probably explained while I was working all hours. I'm sure keeping teams small at Apple helped with the profit margins, but it had a much more noticeable benefit. It made decisions really fast and enabled us to change direction with ease. Part of Toppsta's commitment to getting as many books as possible to children is to provide a range of campaign options starting from just £100, but going up to several thousand, so that no matter what budget the publisher has, we can help get that book out to children who might enjoy it. To enable us to keep that entry-level option low, I have deliberately kept our fixed costs low. This means that we only use freelancers as and when needed. We have no office space, everybody works remotely, and we use a variety of cloud solutions with a small monthly cost. These are just some of the things that we use. I'm sure some of you are familiar with at least some of them, if not all of them. We use Trello for task management, Buffer for social media, Slack for team communication, Canva for creating artwork, Feedbackify for customer feedback, Xero for accounting. The new one that I'm very excited about is this creator one, the Zoho one, which is essentially a database and can be used for CRM. And I'm sure I've missed others, so if anyone has any other recommendations, please do add them to the chat. By using freelancers, saving on office space, and using these cloud-based applications, I feel that in normal times and these times of crisis, we have been able to diversify and respond more easily. That's not to say it hasn't been challenging, and it's clearly impacted our revenue for this quarter, but we've been able to recognize our customers' changing needs and adapt our offer quickly. Important though it is to keep costs down. Free isn't always good value. I've bored a lot of people with this. I can see a few familiar names here on the chat. I'm not a big fan of spending too much time on social media content. Yes, it's free, but it's also very short term. I've begun thinking about it almost like a firework display, with the biggest bang getting the most attention. Not only is your content gone in a millisecond, but you don't own it anymore. And whoever runs the platform controls your access to people you have spent time courting. So I've spent a lot of time amassing our social media followers. You can see the figures here. But one day Facebook changed their algorithm a couple of years ago, and overnight we lost 75% of the traffic to our website. Thankfully, because of our low cost base, we could pivot, and I'll come on to that in a minute, but I would never again invest so much time, effort and content into a social network. We have pretty decent social media numbers here, but I wondered if anyone would like to guess what percentage of our website traffic comes from social media. Anyone going to be brave? 50%, 25%, 20%, 10%, 1%. Right. Good guesses, Sarah. I think you're the closest. It's 2%. 2%. And this is for something that was really taking up a huge amount of our time. So free isn't always good. But key though it is to keep fixed costs low. You can't go cheap on staff. It really is vital to invest in your team. And we have a fantastic team now. But in the early days, I tried to keep our freelancer costs low because our revenue was low. And unfortunately and unsurprisingly, we just didn't get the quality of staff I had hoped for. We are not a charity, we are a business. So whilst I will save on office space and office equipment, I've learned that if you want premium staff, you need to pay them well and look after them. Lesson number 6, free is good when it fulfills your purpose. One benefit of being a social enterprise is that we can justify things which wouldn't necessarily make sense within a purely commercial business. We send a huge amount of books to families. We send boxes of books, reading records, posters to schools. I respond personally to requests for book recommendations on social media and over email. We put together fun resources to help keep kids reading at home. And I'm particularly proud of our latest project, where we send 30,000 of these reading records or reading diaries to primary schools. Within a traditional commercial environment, I'm sure I would have to justify each and every penny. But for me, these are as much a part of what we do as running the paid for campaigns. Lesson number 7, as a social enterprise, whenever we can, we start with DIY. I have no technical expertise myself, which was the butt of many a joke at Apple, but I have at times felt underqualified to be running a digital business. I did think about partnering with a programmer in the early days, but I was advised by a very successful entrepreneur to hire this expertise instead and not give away capital, and he was right. As a key part of our commercial model was to build our website traffic, it was important that the website was what I called SEO friendly. I can't say I knew exactly what I meant by that, other than that in my head there was some kind of black magic which went on behind the scenes and made Google our friend. I have learned, however, that before you outsource anything, to try and understand it yourself. And I'd like to share our website traffic progress with you in this slide. So in January 2016, we launched our new shiny website with an agency who told us they had SEO expertise. 12 months later, you can see that our traffic had precisely moved about 100 off zero. And so I brought in an SEO expert at £600 a day, and you can see the enormous impact that had on our traffic as well. After another 50 months of going precisely nowhere, I decided to sit down and teach myself. I watched a 10-hour SEO course on YouTube for non-technical people and learned how content, without any of the fancy technical changes, can drive traffic to a website in a sustainable way. The impact was noticeable within just a couple of months, and the blog pieces I wrote back then and continue to write each week drive more traffic and engagement than any of our social media posts, even when I'm not posting. I think, as Kate said yesterday and has been said before, content is indeed king. Unfortunately, we took a knock when the Google algorithm changed, but by reading a few articles, I knew what we needed to do. And 6 months later, we were back on track, having rebuilt the website, as you can see here. And that last arrow at the peak is where we're currently experiencing huge traffic increases due to the current homeschooling. But all those articles I wrote back last year are still bringing hundreds of people to our website every day. As a social enterprise, I would much rather start with DIY and understand the basics before hiring a freelancer or an agency. It's fun getting stuck in, and when things change, as they always do, I feel much more prepared to pivot. I've talked about how important it is as a social enterprise to have a purpose, but lesson 8 is as much about being commercial as well. I think it becomes untenable to have a business which looks a bit like this, where purpose dwarfs financial return and where the overlap between the two is minimal. I have made mistakes bringing in freelancers to grow our packages, which only affected our profits. I've got lots of crazy ideas, like creating a page on the website where schools could track their reviews. But the reality is that we would get no additional revenue from this, and the time required to deliver the new pages would distract us from revenue generating projects. Lesson 9 then, I've just suddenly noticed the time, is that sometimes it's frustrating to be a social enterprise. I love this quote from Peter Holbrook's opening session on Tuesday. I often feel that Toppsta is not considered a real business. I think sometimes people think I'm just handing out a few children's books like a digital librarian. But we have all the same HR, legal, financial, commercial considerations of any small business. Another frustration is there are some obvious commercial quick wins which don't fit with our purpose. For instance, at the moment, despite having these incredible traffic levels, we don't take third-party adverts on the website because I feel it's wrong on a website aimed at children. And there are frustrations because we often fall between the gaps when it comes to grants. I am hugely excited about the Oxlab COVID-19 grant because it's one of the few where I feel we might actually fit the criteria. And usually we're ineligible because we're not a charity and we're not high growth. But lastly, lesson 10 at the 11th hour is that despite the frustrations, despite the complexity, despite all the free activity we do alongside our paid for activity, running a social enterprise is quite honestly the best job in the world because it doesn't feel like a job at all. Toppsta is still a work in progress, but we make a difference to children's lives. We make enough money to cover our costs and provide income for our team and invest in the future to grow our reach. So ideally, we are still aiming for this and aiming for the purple. But I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to say thank you very much for listening.